want to start asking you about Death Valley and what the in-game stadium experience was, and then I think we'll get into more of the actual like analysis maybe next, because I mentioned pockets of happiness. It's one of my favorite parts about sports, and I think it's why we love sports so much, right? And it's not that it's logical, because I think if you were to just be coldly intellectual about all this stuff, you would probably arrive at maybe we care too much about all this stuff, and like if we focus more, blah 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 blah. But whatever, the amount of community, shared human experience that you get from moments like these are literally so, like, that's kind of like one of the great joys of being alive. Like, kind of one of the only reasons to be alive is to feel some of the emotions that you felt on Saturday night. And I mean, you were in the stadium. I'm just sitting over there at Don Juan, and it was a great crowd over there. But like, that in and of itself was its own little bubble hearth of just like companionship and joy. And I'm talking, it's one of those games where every play there's claps, right? Like a 4-yard gain, whole bar's like, yes, that's what's okay, yeah, hell yeah.
Right.
Like incomplete pass, all right, boys, let's go. Tapping each other up, hugging constantly. I mean, if you've seen the videos, you probably saw something. So like all throughout, and just like thinking about throughout the country even, not just Louisiana, but in some people's homes throughout Louisiana, in bars around the state, and an alumni bar in Houston or alumni bar in New York City, like everybody, we were all going through this massive collective shared experience. But then the epicenter of that, those are all kind of the aftershocks. The epicenter of that was Death Valley. And just through the television, I had not seen Death Valley look like that, sound like that, or feel like that, and I don't know how long. So what was it like actually being in that stadium?
I mean, it was everything that you said, but, my oldest son was going to go to the game, and he did, and my youngest son found out that he was going to the game. He's like, hold up, wait a minute. And so, like, the day of the game, I got the rest of the boys and Katie a ticket, and they weren't going to go, and I'm so glad they were able to experience it, but we were separated in the stadium. And so, like, for me as a dad, like, one, I've never gotten to experience Tiger Stadium like that. Like, I was playing in the 07 Florida game. I wasn't at the 03 Georgia game. I was at the 14 Ole Miss game, but like, no disrespect to Ole Miss, that's not the same as what this was.
No.
Same thing as this year's Ole Miss game. Like, that's not the same thing. So this is like one of those top 3 moments, and you're right, T. Like, everyone lived through every single play. Every play was the biggest play of the game, and you just don't ever get a game like that. And like for me, like my 13-year-old son, you're 13, you try to be the coolest guy in the room. Every 13-year-old in America is like that, but he wasn't that for this game. He was locked in, he was engaged, and we're sitting there, we're sharing every single moment. And when you decide to go for 2, and everybody's like just freaking out, but it was weird because everyone in my section, they agreed with it. Like, oh, absolutely,
it's absolutely
go for
the
2.
correct call. I mean, it is 100%. I'm not saying that it's always a blanket go for 2 to win in overtime, but if you are the underdog, and you are trying to affect a 2-touchdown upset, which LSU was doing, Jake, you control the terms of engagement at that point.
Yeah.
In military talk, you have the initiative. Why would you give the initiative back to the opponent? Like, there's no need to do that.
And Alabama wasn't ready for it.
And you just scored so easily. Like, you had them on your heels. You had constantly, if you look at the rhythm of the second half, the offense had constantly answered the call every single time that they needed to. To not go for 2 there would have been, and whatever, like, Brian Kelly was never going to. He said it after the game. He was like, if you would have told me I get 1 play to win the game before, I would have taken that 100 times out of 100.
Right.
So, yes.
And you had an experience in which a missed extra point cost you a game earlier in the year.
Yes, and you had direct experience. Yes.
And he talked about it after that game. He's like, probably should have gone for 2 in that moment.
Yeah, so you had the initiative. You keep the initiative. You dictate the terms. And if you lose, you lose. But you can't be – and so really, Jake, in that decision, you see maybe one of the greatest strengths of this team, something we always talk about, something Kelly talks about, right? That is one snap and clear, living for that play in front of your face. And when you're in the present, there's some people talk about the last dance of Michael Jordan, that he was incredible at being present to the point of almost feeling like a superpower. What's the advantages of being in the present? When you're in the present, you're not worried about failure because you're not worried about the outcome. All you're worried about, okay, what is my job? How do I do my job? And you're focused on doing it. And then the outcome will come, whether it's success or failure, that will come. But you're focused on just doing the job. So when Brian Kelly makes that decision, he's not scared of not getting it and losing the game. He's thinking, no, I think in this play, this is my best path to winning. I'm not going to fear failing, and we're going to go for it. And that is what this team is so good, and that's how they overcame the questionable overturned fumble, Mekhi Wingo not tipping the ball, just everything. Bryce Young doing incredible Bryce Young things and creating that touchdown out of nowhere late in the game. Like the reason Will Campbell, how he can give up a sack and they come out the next play and be dominant again, like it's because this team embodies living in the present and in that one snap and clear mentality, and it's really paid huge dividends. It's one of the main reasons why they've gotten better. They're so mentally tough, and that's what led to that 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and I can tell you, so a lot of people, whenever we're talking games or whatever, a lot of people want to talk 2007 Florida and like mindset of, okay, well, you kept going for it on fourth down. Like, what were you thinking in the huddle?
Yeah.
Well, for me as a player, and Matt's talked about this as well, when the coaches continue to do things like that, you understand the moment. You understand what's on the line. You understand what they're doing, which is putting their utmost faith in you as a player. They have confidence in you. They trust you. And so for us, after the first one, we're like, oh, we're not going to let these coaches down. I mean, they're believing in us. I mean, we're sitting here, we're on the other side of our 50, and we're running for it on fourth down, and Tim Tebow's on the other side, right? And that's the mindset that this team has. They know that their coach trusts them. Like, to go for two in that moment, in that huddle, I guarantee you no one was scared, no one was nervous, because you feel this shock wave of faith from the sidelines, knowing that they believe in you and they feel like they have the best play call with their players. And it's a hard feeling to describe because it doesn't happen often. That's the only time really in my career, that time, and then even the Auburn game in 07, like, we did not know that the seconds were rolling down like they were, and so we didn't have that feeling. But I guarantee you that team had that feeling on Saturday night, and it's this feeling of, I am not going to let my team down, my coaches down. I'm going to do my job. Whatever the play calls for me, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it at an 11.
And one other part that can't be lost in this is at that point, the offense also just had confidence. I mean, you had been moving the ball. You've been scoring. You scored at will with two devastating downfield blocks. I mean, Josh Williams, that thing was beautiful. But you score so easily the first play of the game, the first play of overtime. At that point also, you feel like you had the defense on their back heels. Like, when I'm lining up, I know I'm going to win this play because I'm better than you. And that's how I'm thinking. I mean, did you see the cover of The Advocate? Jaden striding into the end zone, just basically like kind of sucking his teeth at this dude, calm faces. He like runs by him, chilling.
I felt it in the stadium, and he's like a long way away, and I felt him sucking his teeth.
By, like, man, just like you just glide on by, dude. And so the team's confident, present, and good things happen. You were rewarded with one of the most legendary wins in Tiger Stadium, and a night that no one will soon forget. And now even greater, though these discussions I think come next, you have a chance to go to Atlanta. And it was interesting, Jake. I went on with Haldane this morning, and he asked me a question, how do you avoid getting too high and, blowing it against Arkansas or something? And I was like, see, my problem with that is fear-based thinking.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we just talked about, right? That is not focusing on the task at hand. Not that we have to, right? But that is a thought process that is rooted in the fear of failure. What has this team shown us this year to make us believe that they operate in that way? That they operate in the fear of failure? Because quite frankly, they do not. I mean, whether it's a Florida State game, any of these comebacks, these second halves, no, like, this is a team that has given you reasons to be confident, not afraid. And so, no, I'm not going to engage with any, like, are we going to lose to Arkansas? Are we going to blow? No, whatever. Just trust this team, have fun, enjoying everything day by day, and you will be rewarded. And I don't think the focusing is really that much of an issue. I mean, Jake, you've been a part of good teams and great locker rooms like this. Like, the teams and locker rooms that can handle success are those that have not had them. And you can argue that maybe a lot of the players here have not, and that's fine, but Brian Kelly has, right? And Brian Kelly's culture and process continues to pay huge dividends. So that's a culture and process that is very well equipped to handling success. And if anything, I think well, obviously it's a good thing, right? But I have no fear of it because these are the times, Jake, when everybody comes in wanting to work. You know?
Yeah.
Like the building's a buzz. The coaches want to be there extra. The players want to be there extra. Everybody's happy to go run, to go lift, to go watch film, to do all this stuff. Like, it's easy. The weather's about to be nice.
Yep.
Like this time of year where if you're rolling, it's easy to lock in and do the right things and get ready. So, no fear, only confidence going forward. And this team's special, man.
Yeah, and you got a team coming up this week, and we'll preview it, against Arkansas that just lost to Liberty. Now, Liberty's a good football team. I'm not going to act like they're not, but that team right now doesn't have a lot of confidence. This team does have confidence, and like T said, they've not shown me anything. They've not shown anyone anything to says that they won't be ready for this matchup. And you're exactly right. It's a great point about this is when you get the most excited as a football player.
Yes.
When it's November, it matters. You're playing for something. You're excited to be in the building. The weather is changing. You're out there under the lights practicing because it gets darker a little bit earlier.
Crazy.
It's not hot as hell in Baton Rouge. I mean, all of those things, I used to love it. It was my favorite time of the year. And this team is mature enough to realize what they have in front of them and the opportunity that they have. They have games against teams in which they're going to be favorites against. Go out there, you win them, including you have a game in between where you play a UAB team who's, not a bad opponent. So, like, it's not going to go, like, to this peak and then you got to worry about them going all the way down for UAB and then trying to get back up. Like, it stays pretty steady with the teams that you're going to play. So, man, I'm excited about it. I know they're excited about it. This team to be in this position, I mean, we want to say after the Florida State game, hell, after the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
Like, did you think this team, like, if you don't think this team's mental makeup is strong
was
enough?
Also in there, right? Like after the Tennessee game, Jake, we only had one good game to really hang your hat on, and that was Mississippi State. You had every other Power 5 opponent you did not play well.
No.
Which is just shocking.
You're like, here's 17 points to start off with, and we'll catch up to you later.
God.
That's another thing in this
Football's
contest.
an awesome game, man.
I mean, this game, Alabama didn't lead. Like, Alabama had to play catch up. Even though the score was close, like, it never felt like T's talking about, and every one of you LSU fans are going to know exactly, how many times in years past, if they would have scored when they did, you would have thought, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no way. We don't have the offense. Outside of 2019, we don't have that type of offense. Like, we can't go down there and score as quickly as we did. In fact, score too quick. Alabama was able to get a field goal after that, but and
that thing barely snuck in. I was salty.
So where I was in the on the west side and kind of towards the south end zone, and so I couldn't really tell.
Look, it wasn't as ugly a kick of the Tennessee one that beat Alabama, but in terms of placement, it wasn't that far off. Like it was a bottom corner. It was a bottom corner boy. And I was just like, of course, but whatever. But every time, any of us felt that kind of, like somebody at the bar kept saying like TJ Yeldon screen pass. And at one point I was like, shut the F up, dude. Do not mention that again. Like
I would have crow hopped that person.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like we are not mentioning that name again. But that's the thing. LSU fans have been hurt so many times that it was a constant mental battle against all these old memories. And how you shatter these old memories and how you free them from having power over you is by doing this. Is by when it looking like, oh, here we go again, you say, not today. And that's exactly what this team did.
I mean, so many moments, and we'll go over every single one of them where in years past, like that would have been the nail in the coffin. So many big calls, so many big moments, penalties, rules that I just found out for the first time on Saturday that, hey, if I would have known when I fumbled, if I just put my toe out of bounds and touched the ball, we would have kept possession. So many things, but this team continued to overcome them all night long.
All right, let's get into this game a little bit here. Shout out to everybody watching on youtube.com/1045ESPN. Hit the like button and whatnot. One thing, so Jake, I started a film review early this morning. Did about an hour and a half, and I think I got almost a quarter and a half in. Yeah. One thing though, and this goes back to the overall theme of this not being fluky. One thing that I really liked about this game was the groundwork laid in the first half for the success of the second half. Because this was a 7-6 game at halftime. Okay, right. So make no mistake, it's not like the offense was dominating. Now you can't say that the defense was, right? But it's not like the offense was doing anything great. But what you were seeing was a team that had some great complementary play, in that no drives were empty. I guess in many ways, like the first half, you played much better than the 7-6 score line would tell you. Because no drives were empty. You were always getting a couple of first downs. You were punting the ball well, so solid special teams to pin Alabama deep. Yeah. And then the defense was coming through and rewarding you for forcing Alabama on these long fields. And the defense continued to gain momentum. It was a classic first drive where they're on their heels a little bit. They managed to come up with a huge play in the red zone. And after that, they started forcing 3-and-outs at quite literally a rate that Alabama had not seen all year long. But kind of lost in the excitement and everything, I think, is just the solid field position battle of the first half, in which LSU won by winning all three phases of the game.
All three phases is like key here, is crucial here, because like in this game, and I'm talking about Alabama LSU series, like we've seen so many times what field position and what if you don't play all three phases. Certainly it's so. The last kickoff there that LSU had after Mason Taylor scored the touchdown before Bama kicked their field goal, and everyone in the stands knew it. They were talking to the kicker that was kicking off, saying, kick it in bounds, kick it deep, kick it in bounds. I'm talking about, I had 1,000 people around me that I could hear say, kick it in bounds, because we all know there's been a time where LSU's kicked it out of bounds, Alabama goes down and wins the game. So, everyone knew that you had to be locked in on all three phases, and LSU was, and credit to them, because field position was always going to be crucial here. Yep. Right? I thought, the punt team put it in the air, didn't allow Alabama to return it. It might not have been 55-yard bombs, but sometimes that's bad. It was a good situation. You had hang time. Your guys got down there. LSU and Death Valley cheered every time LSU caught a punt. Yeah. And so – you're right. That's something that's probably going to get lost, but it was a key moment in the game, time and time again, when LSU was able to have that good field position. I just seen the highlights here where Coach Saban's getting on somebody.
Well, I know, I love that, and so I think that to me, why it stands out, especially offensively, because later the scoring would come, but the offense never felt like, Jake, we've watched a lot of bad offense out of LSU over the years, and it never felt like that. It never felt like, oh, this is broken, it's just not working. No, you would be moving the ball, then, there's a holding penalty, maybe give up a sack, but it was like you never just went out there and got completely blanked, and then you leaned on them, and you start breaking through more and more by the end of the game. I think let's start with Jaden Daniels, dude, because Jaden Daniels has now written his legend. I remember tweeting for that final drive, Jaden, this is a chance to write your legend, go out there, take it, and he has done that. Jaden Daniels will be beloved. Oh, yeah, that's not a penalty either. Hitting a guy when he's sliding. Unbelievable, dude. How you pick up that flag, I have no earthly idea. But yeah, Jaden.
Well, I do, but we're not talking about that today.
But again, that's another case of the one stand clear mantra. Did not let any of these bad breaks get to them. Didn't let it affect the next play. But Jaden Daniels, one of my big concerns coming into this game, Jake, was could he remain trusting of his read, his offensive line, and his arm if he was to get pressure? Well, on the first play of the game, Bradford gets beat badly. It wasn't really him getting beat. It was a miscommunication. Bradford thought he had Charles Turner with him. He didn't. Right. Interior rusher comes free. What does Jaden Daniels do? He stays in the pocket. And he hits Williams out of the backfield for a nice little 4-yard gain, but he gets hit right as he releases. A couple plays later, 3rd and 6, he gets lit up when he stands in the pocket and delivers a first down to Malik Neighbors. And yet, despite on the first series immediately realizing that it was going to be a bit of a hairy night, you never saw him get you never saw him lose his cool.
Yeah.
The happy feet never returned. When he ran, it was because he had to. When he could stay and make decisions, he did. Like he avoided the reversion that I've been fearing if you were to get consistent pressure. He basically told me, no, I've evolved beyond that. Like that's just not going to happen anymore because now I fully understand what this offense can do, how I operate within it, and who I can trust and how much to trust them. And so it just, to me, that was like an immediate, just big time growth point that you saw from Jayden Daniels. And look at the 2-point conversion. You're going to tell me that's not a man who's trusting of his read and trusting of his players? I mean, that ball came out immediately. There was no hesitation. He knew he had what he wanted, and bam, win the game.
Yeah, there was so many times that it felt like he was in complete control, like you're talking about. Like, you knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball. Even if that read was taken away, he didn't panic, right? He didn't panic, and he didn't, try to do something outside of his body in this game, which he's been so good at over the last month of the season. Like, you talk about a 4-yard check down to Josh Williams. Like, that's a game-winning play. Like, it's 4 yards, but it's a game-winning play because you have a free rusher and you have someone in your face and you don't try to do too much. I would say, look, and I know that they had 6 sacks on the evening, but 3 or 4 of those were him just trying to step up in the pocket, which is what you're supposed to do. He wasn't trying to roll out. He wasn't trying to do too much. And it's really like the tackles, like, as an offensive lineman, like that's on you, but it's not on you. It's just it's a coverage sack. And so many times he was trying to step up and then step out, and Alabama was able to get a hand on him and get him down, but he protected the football.
Yep. With
6 sacks and there was never a threat of a fumble, that's taking care of the football as well. And the way that the sacks were, stepping up and you're moving the ball still out and you're trying to get up in the pocket. So, again, complete control and the coolness that he does it with.
Yeah.
Like, and you talk about the picture in The Advocate, like that's how he plays. Like, he's got this smile on his face and it looks like his heart, never races to a point where it's like, oh man, I don't know if he's nervous. And it never gets too low. Like, it just stays right there in the middle.
Unflappable. He's like a steady cam. He does.
Did we ever figure out what flappable was?
No, we never did.
No.
But he does. He reminds me a bit when he runs, especially when he gets going. Alvin Kamara has this as well. They're so smooth in their movements that it makes them look slow. Like, you don't realize how fast they are actually going. And I think again, like, watch Jayden Daniels run, Jake, and his upper body just remains on that even plane, that even smooth plane, while his legs are doing everything. Kamara's kind of the same way, as you'll see tonight. But everything about, like you said, and that's what you want out of your quarterback. You have to have that cool, calm confidence. You can't get rattled, and he did not get rattled all night long.
And one thing that I want to make sure while it's on my mind that I point out, everyone on this team, offense, defense, special teams, but I notice it on offense because that's what I played, and I know how that dynamic can be sometimes. No one really cares who's doing it as long as it gets done.
Yep.
Like, whenever their number is called, they come in and they make a play. Like, Kayshawn had 7 for 51, but go back and watch the TV copy, might tell a better story than even the All-22. When his guys made a play, he was the first over there. Yep. Look at a guy like John Emery. We know how talented John Emery is, and he had a nice game, 5 for 26 on the ground. We know he had the 30-yard touchdown catch. Like, John Emery, there's a lot of places across the country where he's the number one back and he plays 70 snaps.
Yeah.
But he knows that on this team, that's his role. You never see him complaining. He's the first out there celebrating. And it's like time and time again, there's guys like that. Same thing with Malik Neighbors or Josh, whoever it is, defensively too. I mean, they're guys coming in and out all the time. And I've been a part of a team like that. T, I think you have as well. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It has to happen organically.
Yeah.
But this team cares about each other. They don't care if it's them making the play. Now, they're ready to make it if called upon, which is the key. You got to have that. That's the key part of it. But it's such a team that's so locked in. And for all the people saying that, culture fit and is this going to work and, BK's this, that, and the other, I see nothing but a team that wants to play for each other, play for their coach, a coach that trusts his players, and a group that is having a hell of a time doing it together.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I mean, John Emery, again, he's kind of the opposite of a steady cam runner. He's got that that violent kind of shake to him, that high step cut that he constantly employs. He's going to be really, really good. Yeah. And I got to talk about Joshua, but there's a million guys that we're going to talk about today. Let's go to break and continue to break it down more when we get back. All right, let's get back to this game, Jake. We go on and on about Jaden Daniels, obviously, right? Like we said, making the plays down the stretch. I'm very excited watching more of the film review. But let's talk about some of the other things. We mentioned the true freshman class all the time. And why not? I mean, Mason Taylor, Jake. Let's actually start there.
Yeah.
Again, a man that is almost a microcosm for this entire team in terms of growth, right? In terms of what we saw early on in the season versus what you have now seen over the last month or so. This is a very young football player that Brian Kelly expressed a ton of confidence in early on. Also, you want to talk about validation for Kelly's evaluator, like ability to evaluate football players? Because he said here and told, this cat's good, like really good. And we need a tight end. And his emergence has made everything kind of work.
Yeah.
Like without him, we would be in a lot of trouble. And it felt like to us, maybe at first, they're forcing the ball to him. Jaden obviously likes him, but the balls aren't on target. He's dropping him. Like, what is this? Like, stop trying to make Mason Taylor happen. All those jokes that kept coming about.
I will raise my hand the highest because of everything you said. It's like you could tell like they wanted to get him involved, but they weren't on the same page. And there was times when you wanted him to sit down and Jaden would throw it where he thought he was going to be, and there was a disconnect. But that's going to happen with freshmen.
Yeah.
Like if we went back and we watched the 2004 Florida LSU game, Jamarcus is making audibles. I'm going the wrong way. I'm trying to run plays that aren't being called. Like, you're a freshman.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. And we saw it time and time again. But this coaching staff, I'll be damned, knew better than us.
How about it?
And they knew what they had, and they knew what they wanted to get done with him, and now it's all coming together.
And make no mistake, it's not just the big plays that he made, but those were massive. And it's one of the nicest moments ever. Did you see after the game him with his mom, where he's just overcome with emotion and he's literally crying on his mother's shoulder? It's one of those great life-affirming moments of humanity. But it's not just that he made the big plays, Jake. He has become a very good tight end on a down-by-down basis. I mean, he continues to contribute now, and then he just made these mass plays that are going to live in history. But even his blocking. Like, I've got a clip that I haven't texted to the boys yet of him, and it's a simple zone that goes for 4 yards, and he doesn't pancake anyone, but he is essentially the fullback on lead going toe-to-toe with Toto and does it. Like, I mean, just swallows him up. Just a very solid block. And at 18 years old, to be able to do that is wild. But again, why I love it is like Jaden Daniels, like a lot of this team, he was being called into question in the media, and we were all very frustrated and saying, why is he still playing? And he did not let the outside noise get to him. All he did was focus on improvement, getting better and better. And now Mason Taylor, too, is a stuff of legend.
Yeah. Oh, forever.
And just as like a football player is an incredibly exciting prospect. Again, when you think about him being 18 years old and how that projects going forward, and this offense where tight end is the end-all be-all, and you saw what you could do with a great tight end. Look at Brock Bowers in Georgia right now. Like, just as potential as a football player is exciting, even without any of the man who broke Alabama kind of legend that will form around him.
Yeah, and this is someone that wasn't highly touted as a recruit. He's a 3-star guy, 492nd in the country, 67th best player in Florida, 24th tight end.
Damn.
Right? And he's already, so 24th tight end just in this last class, and he's out there catching touchdowns in the fourth quarter, catching the game-winning 2-point conversion, making plays throughout the game the last couple of weeks. And this is someone that is only going to get better. Like, you can tell, like, he's gotten so much better within the season.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell now what the coaching staff, and you have your offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, in that room every single day with the tight ends.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what kind of growth he's going to continue to have knowing your OC, who's never typically in that room. I mean, your OC, as you know, he's going to be a quarterback coach. If he's not a quarterback coach, on the very, very rare occasion, he's going to be in your room. He's going to be an O-line coach. He's never going to be in the tight end room.
That is true.
You have that, and you're seeing the player's probably getting that attention that he needs to be able to play as soon as he has, and he's going out there and he's making plays.
You want to talk about not being afraid of failure. What if Mason Taylor drops that ball? And it's not like he's not approaching that way, but we have seen that pass drop multiple times this year are passes like that. But
Yeah.
again, living in the moment, one snap and clear. Folks are getting better every single week. Not being afraid of failure, but confident in your preparation. He smoothly makes the catch, which is a bit harder than it looked. I mean, they made it look easy, right? But I mean, you're falling, you're twisting, you're turning, you got to stay in bounds, and what a play.